through 10 program here at St. John's Academy. Next year, our grade 11 and 12 program is going to be changing a little bit. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what the International Baccalaureate is. Most of you have probably heard the IB and the International Baccalaureate, but I'm going to take a little bit of time tonight to explain what the IB actually is, and what the vision is of the organization and of the curriculum. I'm going to talk what the middle years program is, how it operates, how assessment works within the MYP, especially if you're a returning parent. You've probably seen our report cards, and you might be sitting there with big question marks, like, I don't know what any of this means, and I don't understand it. So I am going to be talking a little bit to that tonight. Hopefully I'll be able to bring some clarity there. As well, I will be speaking a little bit about the personal project. The personal project is a project that students in grade 10, which is the last year of the MYP, participate in. So if your student is not in grade 10 already, they will eventually be taking the personal project. It's just a wonderful, wonderful educational opportunity. And I will also be answering some questions about ManageBac. I brought my laptop as well, so if anybody has very specific questions, like I don't understand how to do this, how to do that, more than willing to work with you afterwards one-on-one. And if it's something bigger than that, you need to be signed in, or you haven't received a welcome email or anything like that, I can do that tonight as well. So, just a little bit about St. John's Academy. Most of you are familiar faces, so you're probably pretty aware of who we are. We don't actually have, so we're grades 4 through 12. I think our exact number is about 185, 183, something like that. Currently 150 Canadian students, 40 international students. Our teacher-to-student ratio is pretty impressive. And I would say probably pretty expensive, but it's awesome. We have, I can undoubtedly say, I think one of the best faculties on the island. It is incredible the type of people that are coming to work at the school and the talent that we're attracting, and a lot of it has to do with the IB. And obviously the vision and some of the leadership here at St. John's Academy, but a big part of the draw is the IB system. They understand that when they teach within the IB, they're part of a network of international schools all around the planet that get to do something way beyond just teaching students. So, and education at St. John's Academy is guided by our vision and mission. This is something actually that informs a lot of our professional development. Spend a lot of time actually thinking and working out what this means for us in our classrooms, as well as what this means for teachers. Even our students are introduced to the vision, and they have to work out how they can help us achieve this vision. So, St. John's Academy is a caring community that is making the world a better place by providing life-changing experiences through innovative learning. A bit of jargon in there, but we have had a lot of fun trying to unpack what some of those are. The mission at St. John's Academy, this is a little verbose, but I will go through it. I think it's really important for you to understand what our program is. So St. John's Academy offers an academically rigorous and transformational learning program for tomorrow's leaders in a caring and supportive environment. One thing that's really important to me in academics is that we have extremely high expectations for our students, but those high expectations are matched with high support. We really do want to support our students as much as we possibly can, and we want all of our students to succeed and not get too comfortable just passing or just kind of, achieving the status quo. Our holistic programs develop a sense of adventure and appreciation of nature and the arts. Those two in particular, the nature and the arts, have become a major focus for this year, as we're really trying to deliver on that outdoor education piece, making sure that every student within our school has access to the outdoor education program. I think currently right now we're running it 3 nights a week, all year long. And that includes like waterfronts as well as stuff up in the forest. Enabling our students to make positive contributions to local and global communities through responsible and principled action. We're going to show you I'll show you the mission of the IB program in a little bit. You will notice that there's a lot of alignment between what the IB is trying to achieve around the world, as well as what we're trying to achieve here within Shawnigan Lake. So our core values are caring, resilience, courage, integrity, and respect. When it comes to some of the evaluations of staff members, as well as when it comes to a number of conversations with students, they really center a lot on these core values. When we are acting and behaving in alignment with the core values, obviously we're a good fit, both students, parents, and staff. Sometimes when we're not totally in alignment, that's where the conversations come into place of like, is this the right place for me, or for you, or whoever? So some of the things about our educational program that I think make us unique, and some of these are taken from the MYP. First of all is that all of our students, one of the things that we really care a lot about is that our students are learning in an intentionally relational community. A lot of your child's teachers are going to be making very specific and intentional moves to try to build relationships with them and try to understand who your child is. That's something that's really important to us. We feel that good education happens when teachers understand who it is that they're actually serving. We also believe that learning should be in context with what's going on in the students' lives. One thing that all teachers in our program can answer is, why are we learning this? What is the value of what it is that we're learning? I don't know what any of your educational experiences were going through school, but one of my greatest frustrations was sitting in classrooms and learning things that were completely disconnected from the world that I was living in. And my teachers not really ever being able to articulate why we're learning this. How is this going to equip me or prepare me for life out there and navigate this really complicated and difficult world? You will notice that I put in windows and mirrors. I've heard it said that really good curriculum provides windows, meaning it allows students to frame the world and see the world differently, but it also allows students to see themselves and better understand themselves and how they will navigate the world. So learning in context is really important. Service learning, obviously we believe a lot of our students are going to be future leaders, will be future leaders. Maybe just within their families, but probably also within our community, maybe within our province, and even a bigger scope. We believe that principled action is incredibly important. We want our students to be balanced and to actually care about the world. I think one of the best definitions of leadership is noticing something wrong and taking action. And I think that's really what good leaders do, so we encourage our students to do that. As well, outdoor education and experiential learning, so having our students actually doing things, something that's pretty important, as well as getting them outside and developing that appreciation for nature. Interdisciplinary teaching and learning, this is something I'll talk a little bit more about. I do apologize if I'm talking really fast, I can slow down. But interdisciplinary teaching and learning is something that's especially unique, I think, about the MYP, but the program that we're offering. We have a total understanding that the 21st century is changing so quickly, and there's very few certainties, but one of those certainties is that students are going to constantly be having to learn and relearn and rethink about problems in new ways. And that's going to require students to draw on different fields of understanding in order to help them solve problems. That's why we place so much emphasis on interdisciplinary teaching and learning, because we know that students are facing complicated problems, or will be facing complicated problems, and as a result, they're going to have to draw on different subjects and different fields to solve those problems. One of our goals is to continue to promote and foster curiosity within our students, getting students to ask questions, and I think that's probably one of the markers of our program, is teaching students, first of all, how to ask good questions and how to formulate good questions, but also having them drive their own learning through asking questions, specifically questions of parts of the curriculum maybe that they're more interested in. Authentic assessment, so trying to connect as much as possible how students are evaluated with real life skills. There's so many different examples of this within our program, but we try to make the presentations, for instance, if students are giving presentations, as authentic as possible. I have some grade 10 students right now that as one of their assessments will be giving a presentation to the whole student body. I believe that it's really important for students to have the opportunity to take big risks and do things sometimes that are scary, but I believe there's a lot of value in that, because exposure to those type of experiences really helps develop confidence and builds courage. Another thing, there's so many different things. But one thing that is very important, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this in relation to the assessment criteria, is making sure that we're teaching students skills that they will be using. Skills, I think they're called 21st century skills quite widely in the educational world. Within the IB program, they're called approaches to learning skills. Here within British Columbia, they're rolling out something very similar called core competencies. So those core skills like communication, collaboration, research, self-management, organization, those types of skills that we know that students will always be valuable to students regardless of how the world changes. And one thing that I think is definitely unique about our program is our dedicated and experienced staff. So what is the International Baccalaureate program? This is the mission statement of the IB. So the IB formed, I think it was like 52, 54 years ago, something like that, in Geneva, Switzerland. It was a number of diplomats came together and tried to figure out how they could create an education program that served more transient populations. Groups of people that were moving around the world, specifically children of diplomats and children of CEOs and people like that. But one of the things that they wanted to do in this program was actually foster, it was quite a lofty goal. They wanted to create world peace. They really felt like the students that would be served by this education program that they were creating were going to be influencers of people that are changing the world. So they created this as their mission statement. The International Baccalaureate, and there's actually a whole other phrase in this, which I've taken out, but the International Baccalaureate aims to develop inquiring, knowledgeable, and caring young people who help create a better and more peaceful world through intercultural understanding and respect. So when you hear at our school that we're bringing in international students, we're bringing in these students because we believe that through interaction with students and people from other cultures, by learning about people from other cultures, students change and they become much more open-minded and more accepting of difference. So the whole creating a better world, and a better and more peaceful world, I think is specifically one of the things that really gets a lot of our teachers buying into the program. So in general, IB programs foster international mindedness. A big part of this is bringing in different perspectives into the classes. So within science, looking at the history of where some of the scientific concepts originated. Within English, within my English class, there's a certain number of books that need to be works in translation. Books that were written in languages other than English and translated into Canada. And obviously the big idea is to help students gain a broader perspective of the world. And also understand the commonality of the human experience, how people growing up in Bangladesh or Mombasa or anywhere around the world are actually dealing with a lot of the same issues. IB programs are rigorous and challenging, are research-based on how humans learn, are internationally recognized and highly reputed, and they aim to develop learners who are caring, open-minded, and principled. They prepare and equip students to navigate a rapidly changing world. And obviously, one of the big things is try to engage students as much as possible with real-world issues. So those are just some of the basic aspects of the IB program. I've created a bit of a game, actually, where there's some facts about the IB that we're going to be getting into in just a couple minutes. But this is the IB Middle Years program. There's a few things that you'll probably notice about it. First of all, that it's a circle. Unlike a lot of, say, public school education, where students move from one subject to another subject and there's not really much connection between those subjects, our program operates as a program. So you will notice at the very center of this is students. We call the attributes that we're trying to develop in our students the IB learner profile. But at the very center is the students. As well, all these subjects are tied together through, approaches to learning, our global context, which has to do with our inquiry model, as well as key concepts. And you will notice as you move further outside the circle, the personal project action, and service is something that takes place within every single one of those subjects. You will notice that we have 8 subjects here. Most of them are pretty straightforward. The language around them is a little bit different than what you might see in a public school. For instance, individuals and societies is our social studies. The one program that I think is quite unique to our model is the design program, which is kind of a scaled down engineering class. It's kind of a combination between an engineering and an art class, which is quite unique. And currently, we're running those on 1-week sprints 3 times a year for each one of our grades. We currently have one grade 10 class doing a design sprint right now. So they're in design for an entire week, and then they go back to their regular classes. So yeah, another thing that you will see binds it all together is this whole idea of international mindedness and international perspectives. Yeah. So I have a question for all of you, and I know that there's a little bit of participation. So I want you to think about someone who is very well educated. I'm going to bring us back to that IB learner profile for a second. Think about someone that you know that you would consider to be highly educated. It doesn't need to necessarily be someone that's went to university for a long time. Maybe it's a grandfather, or maybe an uncle, or someone else that you consider to be a very, very well-educated person. Someone who's very wise. What type of attributes, characteristics, do those people possess? Yeah. Determination, yeah. So they are very committed to achieving their goals. Yeah.
Kindness.
Sorry?
Kindness.
Kindness. I can't think of a more obvious marker of intelligence than kindness, for sure. Anything else?
Good listeners.
Sorry?
Good listeners.
Good listeners, yeah, for sure. People that aren't talking more than they're listening. Within the IB, they've kind of defined 10 different attributes that they consider to be the central attributes that we should be trying to develop within all of our learners. We want our students to be knowledgeable. We want our students to be risk takers, to take risks, to step outside their comfort zone and push themselves a little bit. We want our students to be caring. We want our students to be reflective. We want our students to be principled. We want our students to be communicators, inquirers. We want them to be open-minded and able to listen to other people's ideas without just trying to share their own opinions, but actually listen to other people. We want our students to also be balanced, not just be fully consumed by their academics. We want them to have interests and passions outside of school, and we want to support that as much as possible. And we also want our students to be thinkers, students that can critically examine the world and come to new understandings of the world. So the very central part of the program that we're delivering is trying to develop these 10 attributes within our students here at St. John's Academy. Any questions about that?
Yeah. So the thinkers, is the attribute is it also considering critical thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. And creative thinking. So there's 2 sides of the thinking piece, and it's actually delineated specifically within the ATLs. There's probably 50 different specific skills that we work on in the development, specifically of students that are considered thinkers.
And the second part of the question is, the attributes that you described, are they setting up the student for success beyond, is this a pathway to post-secondary? Is this one of the intentions of this?
Absolutely. So one of the big goals, even thinking beyond post-secondary education, is we want to help students become lifelong learners. Students that are very curious, students that are essentially driving and owning their own learning process. So yes, I think it does. I think it even goes beyond just the post-secondary piece, but in terms of preparation for university, I don't think there's a stronger program in existence in terms of preparing students for success at university. I'm going to show you a quick movie, promotional video from the IB about the MYP. As I'm showing this to you, I want you to notice some of the words and phrases that are being used and perhaps repeated throughout the video. Yeah, Jenny, can you play it for us?
Right. What is an ATL?
ATL, approaches to learning skills.
My first impressions of the MYP were, wow, this isn't a traditional setting. This is a creative framework that allows students to engage with one another, engage with the teacher.
MYP allows the teacher to be more of a facilitator. In that I like being able to go around, seeing the kids work together, helping themselves, helping each other.
Really focuses on the person as an individual thinker, an individual learner, and somebody that is creating their own pathway. I love being able to nurture their individual strengths. That's what the MYP does. I don't want students to just think that science is science and art is art. And that's something that the MYP really nurtures. It nurtures that cross-collaboration.
So one of the main idea for MYP is we emphasize the holistic learning. So we're not looking to how long as it who produce, but we're actually assessing their understanding and analyzing skills.
The way we learn is different because we understand what we're learning, we don't memorize it.
Porque se focaliza mucho en el proceso. Lo importante es el proceso de creación, el proceso de construcción, el proceso de adquisición de conocimiento. Además, se les hace siempre al final de los proyectos una reflexión.
Our students are exposed to different parts of the world. Our students are then more globally aware, more prepared for the real world.
The international aspect, the capacity to understand others and to put yourself in others' shoes and see different perspectives, something which is so crucial.
In the knowledge that we are hopefully not only giving them the academic skills that they need, but really life skills to be able to build on, to be able to take with them.
En gros, à l'école, on apprend à travailler en groupe, à organiser, et du coup, ça nous aidera pour notre futur. On pourra travailler avec des personnes qu'on n'aime pas forcément, et ensuite, on pourra faire des grandes choses et améliorer le monde.
And then we have the assessments that are used around the world that really put the stamp on the rigorous instruction.
They're going out with the sensitivities to their role in the world.
And the MIP provided them with some of the most valuable tools.
Moving forward, Jenny. Thank you. All right. I'm going to have, so I'm going to introduce some more information about the IB. I am going to have us play a game. You're going to need your cell phone for this game. Jenny, will you cue Kahoot? So you're going to need to just Google kahoot.it. You put it into your search, and we are going to play a little game. I actually think that I've created this to be almost impossibly hard. But we're going to try our best at it. So go to kahoot.it, and Jenny's going to put up the code in just a second. So the game pin is right up there. If you went to Kahoot, it's 305-6000. 305-6000. Does it actually tell you which handle you've been given? Does anybody know who Dazzle Dolphin is? Okay. Give you a couple more seconds to get in. 305-6000. All right, Jamie, I think we're ready. So 305, 6,000. 305, 6,000. Go ahead and click start on the right hand side there. Can you turn the volume up? Or is it too late? Oh, there's the volume. So how many students are served worldwide by IB programs? 2.2, 2.32, 1.74, 1.95, 1.33 million students. So choose your student. Oh, it really is right here. So the correct answer is 1.95 million. Almost 2 million students are served by IB schools worldwide. One of the cool things about this is when your child is learning within the IB program, they're actually networked with a lot of other schools and a lot of other students around the world that are going through a very similar sort of process. All right, you can move us forward, Jenny. All right. You too. Keep us moving. Yeah. Awesome. How many countries is the IB offered in? 160, 180, 150, or 140? How many countries are there? Like 197. It's contentious, especially when you get into 160 countries the IB is offered in. So I think they're getting pretty close to actualizing their goal of trying to reach the world and trying to foster world peace. All right, adorable sloth. Well done. How many IB schools are there worldwide? 4,500, 5,500, 30,500, or 6,500. Pretty difficult. I should have thrown in a few that were way out. Correct answer, 5,500 schools, approximately. All right. What is the growth of IB programs worldwide between 2016 and 2022? Good luck with this. How much has the IB grown in those years? 33%. It's a pretty huge growth. One of the major areas of growth, specifically North America, specifically the United States. A lot of people in the United States are demanding a different type of education, and an education that serves the world, and serves people differently. All right. What year was the IB founded? Well, I actually kind of gave a bit of a hint earlier. 1972, 1975, 1968, 1963. It was actually a royal connection too, I think. Yeah. 1968. Who's adorable sloth? How many different programs does the IB offer? So we're learning about the middle years program. There's a few other different programs. So 3, 2, 4, 5. So there's the primary years program that actually starts from 3 years old and goes all the way up to grade 5. Then there's the Diploma program that is grade 11 and 12, and then there's the career-related program, which is also 11 and 12. That's much more of a technical sort of focus. Well done, adorable sloth. Dominating. All right, which region has the most IB schools? The Americas, Africa, Middle East, and Europe, Asia, or Antarctica. The Americas, in fact, yeah, like I said, it's also the fastest growing, but it also has the most IB schools, and it's growing quickly. which is a good sign. That gives me hope. How many students received the IB Diploma in 2019? This was actually the most recent number I could find. Approximately 152,000. 169,000. All right. So approximately 169,000 students wrote their diploma exams or received their diploma in 2019. All right. Which country was the IB founded? I think I've already said this. Switzerland, yeah, Geneva, Switzerland. What age range do IB programs serve? Who's Rocky Wildcat? What's that? All right. Can you bring us back to the presentation? If anybody wants to grab a refill of coffee or a cookie or anything like that, feel free. Were you able, I'll just click through it, I guess?
Yeah.
Were you able to, okay. Seems like a lot of information. All right. In the coming year, so this year we're actually going through the authorization process to become accredited to offer the IB program as well. So the IB program is very similar in terms of how it functions. It is quite academically demanding of students. That said, like I said earlier, here at St. John's we have high expectations of students, but we also do try to meet that with a high level of support as well. One thing is, so students choose 6 different subjects that they will study for 2 years. So it's a 2-year program. It's not really grade 11 and 12. It is a 2-year program where they go in depth into that field for 2 years. It's actually probably closer to 16 months, but it's a continuous program from grade 11 to the end of grade 12, and they write their exams in May. Students choose 3 subjects that are standard level, where they take for about 120 hours. And then they kind of choose a specialty, 3 specialty subjects that they want to spend more time focusing in on. And they spend about 240 hours over the 2 years focusing in on those 3 programs. They can choose which courses they want to specialize in. Those higher level courses are particularly interesting because if they get a 4 or a 5 at UVic and UBC, it's about a level 5. Final IB score of 5, they actually get university credit for those courses as well. A number of our students that went to UVic in the past, when I was with a previous school that was on this location, a number of them were getting their first year of university just kind of covered because they finished the diploma program. So it's great value add for students and families, but it also completely prepares students for university, more than prepares students for university. They're actually trying to take the university courses before they get to university. So that's something that I think is pretty unique. Very kind of similar in terms of the APs. You might have heard of advanced placements. Except in advanced placements, if you know much about the curriculum, and you know that I strongly believe in the IB, so I might be partially biased. There's a lot of focus on the APs with content memorization and writing standardized assessments and standardized exams. One thing that's very different about IB exams, although extremely challenging, is that they actually require students to be solving problems and drawing information using some of the content knowledge in new and novel ways. On the exams, students have some idea in terms of the types of questions that might be asked, but they know that they're essentially going to have to be using the knowledge to address some of the questions and problems that come on the exams. So it's a little bit different. Instead of just memorizing and regurgitating information, it's actually demonstrating a use of information. So I'm going to shift a little bit now to talk about the purposes of assessment. This is where I'm going to go a little bit quicker. Do let me know if you want me to slow down or if you have any questions. I mostly just want to show you what the IB report card looks, the MYP report card looks like, to bring a little bit of clarity there. So when you see it in, I think it's December 2nd is when our first full report card goes out, you'll be able to make a little bit more sense of it. So purposes of assessment within the MYP. The IB aims, the aims of assessment, the MYP include supporting and encouraging students to learn, inform and enhance improved teaching processes, promote positive attitudes towards learning. This is something that we are working against with students in a lot of ways. A lot of our students that come in are very much focused on the score and focused on the mark that they receive. And one of the things that we're always trying to do in our classes is really trying to nudge students towards, well, what can you do differently next time? How can we improve upon this? We really do want students to think of their learning as a process rather than just a final score that they're getting on an exam, and really helping them understand that this is something that's ongoing over the course of the program. Assessment in the MYP is something which happens throughout a unit and helps both the teacher and the student on their learning journeys. So it is very much like a journey where we're taking steps towards a final demonstration of knowledge. So assessment takes place at the start of each unit, so we actually try to figure out, well, what do students already know about the skills and the content that we're going to be teaching our students. It actually just took place over the last little while in a number of the subjects where we were doing pre-assessments, trying to figure out what our students actually already knew and where those gaps in their skills and knowledge already lie. So at the start, so teachers know what their students know and can tailor the class to them. Assessment takes place during the unit, where we're doing what are called formative assessments. These are assessments for learning, where we're actually learning as a teacher more about our students, like, oh, they're not quite getting this, maybe we need to move back and spend a little bit more time focusing on those skills. And it helps students get a little bit of feedback as well. And then summative assessments. So if your child is in the school, you probably heard me talk about summative assessments quite a bit. These are the assessments at the end of the unit of study. This is their final demonstration of the skills that they have been working on for the last 4 to 8 weeks. This is a great quote that I strongly believe about grading and reflection, and something that I try to cue all of our students towards is that grades do not reflect who you are as a learner, but where you are in your learning journey, and where should be, hopefully, always temporary. We're always trying to move our students forward. Not all of our students are going to be achieving at the highest levels right from the outset. That's totally fine. The most important thing for us here is progress. Within the MYP, we use what's called Criterion-Based Assessment. So in every single one of those 8 subjects, if you remember, there's actually set criteria around 4 different skills. Those 4 skills in each class, so for instance in English, the 4 skills that are worked on are analyzing, organizing, using language, and creating text. Those 4 skills and the 4 criteria remain the same from grade 6 to grade 10. So they understand what it is that they need to do if they're, say, for instance, writing an essay or creating a movie for a project or whatever it is. They understand the assessment criteria. So criterion-based assessment communicates clear expectations, helps students understand what they ought to do in order to improve, provides objectivity to the assessment process. One thing I just want to say about this is within most schools, they're not using some sort of set criteria. Teachers are just kind of making up grades. So they give a whole bunch of different assessments to students, then they're kind of just averaging that. An A in one classroom might be a B in another classroom, might be a D in another classroom, might be an A plus in the next classroom. There's not really any sort of standard out there within a lot of education systems. Within the MYP, we have the set criteria, so it specifically says what a student must do in order to achieve a level, and I'll show you an example of what that looks like. It focuses students towards key skills, and it's focused on student mastery. Our goal is that we want that everybody's getting full marks on everything because they fully understand what it is that they need to do in order to get full marks. So each subject, every subject has 4 criteria, and each criterion is graded out of 8. So here's an example from design. There's criterion A, which is inquiring and analyzing, criterion B, C, D. All right? This is the 4 criteria for all the 8 subjects. That's a lot to look at right now, so I'm just going to skip right over it. But these are the skills that are worked on from grade 6 to grade 10 in every single one of the subjects. So we'll look a little bit closer at one of the set criteria for design 6. All right? So for inquiring and analyzing, this is what the criteria looks like. In order for a student to get a 7 or an 8, they need to explain and justify the need for a solution to a problem. They need to state and prioritize the main points of research needed to develop a solution to the problem. And they need to describe the main features of an existing product that inspires a solution to the problem. So this tells us exactly what the students need to do. These words, explain, justify, state, and describe, we don't actually leave that to the student's own interpretation or even the teacher's own interpretation. Those words are actually clearly defined for the students as well as for the teacher of what exactly it means when we're explaining something, or when we're justifying something, or when we're describing something. So it's very objective, and that's one of the big ideas. We want it to be as clear as possible to our learners, like what it is that we're looking for in this task to help them succeed, because really it's all about skill development. I'm going to skip over that. Can you jump over that for me? Not play it? Awesome. So a report card. Yeah, there definitely should be a student's name on here. The next one I just kind of crossed out a student's name. This is a report card from last year. You will notice that there's 8 subjects. There should be, yeah, there's 8 subjects. And you will notice that there's criteria score for each one. The student obviously did extremely well. But these numbers under A, B, C, or D range from 1 to 8. All right? So getting 6s, 7s, 5s even is really good. These translate really high into even BC marks. But this demonstrates to us that the student is near mastery of these skills in almost every single subject. All right? Yeah, so on your report card, you'll see the first page, or the second page is actually the summary of achievement, where you're just going to see all the different levels. But then in each subject, it actually breaks it down. So it uses the descriptor. So if a student has a 7, you will see the written description of what a 7 looks like. If the student had, say, a 2 there, you would see a written description of what the student can actually do right there, of what the student is actually achieving, if that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions about that? Yes?
Yeah, I think it's important for students to be able to receive feedback, as they progress through the system.
For sure.
Is there an opportunity in the system for students to sit down with the teacher and say, well, what do you mean by this grade?
For sure.
What does that translate to? I know it's very objective.
Yeah.
But what does that, can you give me an example of what I did wrong or I did well?
For sure. So one of the things that students do, so when they have a summative assessment, they're actually getting the marks back, and they're seeing the descriptions of what it is. But they also see what the next level is what it is that they needed to do in order to improve. But of course, we do give criterion-based feedback to students as well, so they understand what it is that they missed out on in order to move up to that next level, or a few more levels. But I would say conferencing with students, as well as having students do some of their own peer assessment, as well as self-assessment. One thing that I like to do in my class is have students actually mark their own work and justify to me why they believe that they deserve that mark, and then have the conversation around it before I even give students my mark. I want them to understand the criteria, because if they can understand what it is that I'm looking for, they have a much better chance of actually achieving higher. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, once the students receive their feedback on an assignment, is there opportunity
Yeah, so we're working on the same 4 skills all year long. So what that means is, say for criterion A, by analyzing, students aren't going to be assessed on their analysis skills only once, and then we're moving on for the rest of the year. So right now, my students are actually working on criterion Z, which is producing text, and organizing. We will be going back and doing more tasks that relate to that. In each subject, each of these criterions needs to be summatively assessed 2 times minimum. In a lot of classes, it's actually a little bit more, because the more we assess them, the more information we have in terms of what their actual achievement level is. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Brad,
So,
can I ask you a question?
yeah.
Can you go back a slide? Because something my children have been confused about is that, like, the example of individuals and societies here. So A, B, C, D, you have 6, 7, 7, 7, 7, and then you have middle of your program level 6 at the end. And so does that mean that different criteria are weighted differently? Like, because they look at that, they're like, why am I not getting a 7 if I got 3 7s?
This MYP level down here, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
what is the
that
relationship between those?
That is not actually an average of those marks at all.
It
what-
reads that way, and a lot of times people are like I've had them question that.
And I'll actually make sure, maybe what I can do, there are band descriptors on this, but it's not actually made clear. Maybe I need to actually write that into the cover letter. Essentially what happens is we total these out of 32. So each of so 4 times 8 is 32. And this is their overall IB level. So in the DP program, this is where it gets a little bit messy within the MYP. Within the DP program, they have a grade scale from 1 to 7. Within the MYP, they still have that. They determine that grade scale of 1 to 7 by adding these numbers up. And depending on what they add up to, determines what their overall MYP level is. I would say within the province of British Columbia, and right now, the MYP, the overall MYP level is less important. But you're right, that does read like an average.
It reads like an average, and so it's a bit confusing.
I never actually thought about that. But absolutely it does.
Yeah. It's about best fit and consistent. What does that mean for teachers and reading?
So essentially what we're doing, so we formatively assess all of our students. We're giving criterion-based feedback. So we're actually assessing work for students and giving it back to them in the process. And what happens on ManageBac is we're tracking this process, we're seeing the scores that students are getting. When we're trying to determine their report card levels, we're actually looking at a whole range of the students' work, specifically their summative assessments, but also some of the other assessments that they've done, and we're giving them what's called the best fit. Professionally, what do I believe that student is actually achieving at? What level best describes what that student is capable of? Sometimes you might have a best fit that is actually much higher than some of the grades that are coming back. Rarely would that happen, but it is possible. But it's really dependent on the teacher, but also the information that the teacher has about the student's performance so far. Does that kind of answer your question?
Sure. It also means that, you know, if you look at that beginning of the year, your numbers are quite low, but at the end, you pull it all together, you're getting 7s and 8s and 6s. Your final grade isn't an average of the first part and the second part. The teacher can still give you a 7 or 8 if they believe that that's what your skill sets are.
And vice versa, if a student just tanks at the end, maybe there's something going on at home or something happens and the student does really quite poorly, I have evidence that that student can actually analyze really, really well at the beginning of the year. I'm going to assume that that student still knows how to analyze, but the assessment that I gave them, maybe they just didn't do super well, for sure. Any other questions? All right. Quickly about the personal project. So the personal project is kind of the capstone of the MYP. This is a project of the student's own choosing. So they really get to choose anything that they want to study and learn about in the personal project. What happens is they set a goal and we match them up with a supervisor, either within our school community or potentially somebody outside of our school community. Last year we had one of our more random personal projects was a student that actually wanted to get into gunsmithing. It sounds really terrible in a school environment, I get it. But he comes from a long heritage of family members that were gunsmiths. So he actually worked with his grandfather as his supervisor to walk through the personal project. It was really good. One thing that is the big idea behind the personal project is we want to create space for students to research and learn about and do things that are interesting to them. This obviously has huge career implications. We want our students to be thinking about what are some of the things that you're interested in. And I think that's so important for our young kids to be considering as they're trying to make sense of what is it that I want from this world? What do I want to study? Do I want to go to university? Do I want to go to college? What do I want? And I think starting with their own interests and their own passions is a great place to start. So we create space for that. They actually get 2 credits here in British Columbia for the personal project as well. But the big idea is, and I like this quote, we need to move beyond the idea that education is something that is provided to us and toward the idea that education is something that we create for ourselves. So the personal project really answers this. What would you learn if you learned more about anything in the world? Students answer that question. What is something that just fascinates you, that you're interested in knowing more about? So students create a learning goal. Then the second part is, what would you create to essentially demonstrate that learning? Would it be a website, movie, maybe publishing something? What would you like to develop? So that is the product goal. So the personal project is a combination of a learning goal, something that students really want to learn about, and students combining that with something that students really want to learn how to create and produce. Yeah, it is quite unique. It is a lot of fun last year and every year. I think the personal projects are a huge success. A little bit about the process. So this process is all communicated to students. I teach all the grade 10 students, so I'm talking to them regularly. Every Monday we actually have 50 minutes built into the timetable for us to talk about the personal project. Right now, all of our grade 10s are at this process where they're identifying a learning goal and a product goal. Say most of our students have at this point. Some that are still struggling a little bit, and that's totally understandable. Students can change their learning goals and product goals as we get a little bit further in, but it creates a lot of complications as they go back. We do have an exhibition that hopefully this year will open up to the whole school community and everybody will be able to come in, where students get to show off essentially what it is that they created and did over the course of it. I'm going to show just a quick 2-minute video of our personal project exhibition from 2 years ago, I think it was.
The personal project is an opportunity for students to develop a project of their own choosing based on personal interest. Although independent inquiry and project planning are developed in all grades and subjects in the MYP, the personal project in grade 10 is a capstone project of their MYP experience. Students develop approaches to learning skills such as questioning, research, self-management, social, communication, and thinking skills throughout the project, all of which are valuable, lifelong skills for our students.
I learned that a lot of underdeveloped countries do not have the same amount of education that we do. Everybody has an equal right to education.
My project is about how the media affect TV standard. There's a point where people who are already very beautiful keep obsessing over it because they can see themselves being more perfect, but they can't reach it. So they keep reaching and then they just lose themselves in this process.
I think through this project, I developed a skill for risk taking because I was very intimidated by these infections, and it took a lot of motivation to do it. It was definitely a bump to get over, and I'm really happy that I did. Overall, I just learned more things about Nypd for the school.
I learned a lot about new types of poetry and problems in the world and coming together in homes.
With the personal project, students get the opportunity to grow and reflect on their growth as an IB learner.
Awesome. And now the final part, ManageBac. For most of you, on ManageBac? Yeah? All right. So we use ManageBac obviously for accessing student information, so you can go in and see report cards and see work that is submitted or not submitted, grades on those assignments as well. It allows you to track some of the progress and grade. This is how the report cards are communicated, so we will be sending them out electronically through ManageBac. As well, this year we've also incorporated the attendance. And you can go in there if one of your children is noted as absent. So it will prompt you, it sends out an email to you saying that they were marked absent for a specific class. And you either have the opportunity to go in there and write in an excusal of like, oh, they went to Bergen Office or whatever it is. Ideally, that happens beforehand, but you don't necessarily, you can do it after as well. As well, if you see that your child is marked absent and they should be at school, obviously that's a whole other conversation. I don't think that really ever happens though. And it's a place where you can kind of see the assignments that are being given to your child as well. So we use ManageBac as the primary means of communicating our assignments and grades on those assignments. Yeah. And if anybody is struggling with ManageBac, or if you can't log on, or if you're struggling with that, I have my computer set up here. I'm more than willing to walk you through that process. As well, I did send out, I think it was last week, a number of tutorial videos for parents. If you're not on ManageBac, you probably would not have yet received those because I sent them through ManageBac, through the email system on there. So if anybody is not receiving those, feel free to let me know and I'll help you out. And that's really all I have. Thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate your time. Yes?
On ManageBac, if a student is asking, is there a way for their teachers to send them assignments of it?
Yeah, so they would see the assignments graded on there if they were posted online. The student or you can also contact the teacher directly and just ask, what is it that I missed at that point. Most smaller assignments, definitely bigger assignments, will be posted on there with written descriptions of what they need to do. But if it's just a small activity within the class, that probably wouldn't show up on ManageBac. But most certainly, always reach out to the teachers and ask, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah?
I have a question for you. First, I don't know if you can answer, and I can more be off.
Okay.
You're talking about the US sustainability goals. Does the school as a whole, have they implemented SDGs?
Ooh.
Or are you teaching this? Sorry, so with SDGs, because it's becoming more and more of a hot topic globally, does the school itself, have they implemented SDGs? So you're teaching them, but you're not following them. So is there a bit of a disconnect there? That's sort of one question. Whether you consider doing that, SDGs or SDGs, and for sure, not doing back end things back. Another question specifically for the IB is how does that relate to university acceptance? Like, so you've got the more traditional schools that universities are used to seeing.
Yeah, for sure.
How does that equate to for kids going through the IB program?
Yeah. So
into universities, and not necessarily just ones, let's say you want to go to MIT or something like that.
For sure. Thanks for asking that question. So you definitely, I would say, have a huge advantage if you're going through the IB system. So top universities around the world, specifically the very top universities, all know and understand the IB program, give preference. In fact, most universities, UBC included, have whole different pathways for IB students versus students coming in from regular programs. Mostly because there's a standard that's created. And so when students write their assessments, they're moderated and assessed around the world. There's a certain standard that's created. And universities understand that. So we've seen numerous times where students actually don't have the best IB scores, final IB scores, and they're still getting into university at top choice universities as a result of being in the IB program. Like UBC in particular, as well as a number of other universities, have whole other pathways of entry into their program for IB students. So it's a huge advantage, for sure, especially for those more famous, established universities, for sure. But Canada, I think, is very generous with their acceptances of IB students. So yeah, I would say you have a huge advantage as a student if you're applying to a school as an IB student, for sure. Yeah. The IB actually spends a lot of resources making sure that universities understand what their program is and work on the education part. But they also spend a lot of time with the BC Ministry of Education as well as provinces and states all across North America making sure that their programs are well recognized, for sure. So it's not a new program, it's something that's very well established, especially for British Columbia. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
When you mentioned 11 and 12, there's higher and lower. What is the difference?
So there's 6 subjects that they choose from, and they're taking 3 of those subjects and kind of at the standard level, which is 120 hours. They're taking 3 different subjects at a higher level, which is 240 hours. So essentially what they're doing is specializing in 3 subjects, and they're spending a little bit less time and attention in 3 other subjects. So
can some people go through lower and some go through higher?
no, all students must choose 3 higher level and 3 lower level, 3 standard level classes. Yeah. So everybody specializes in at least 3 subjects. Yeah. Inquiry is, and Dr. G. Christine here is our DP coordinator. She probably has some more questions about that. Can students take up to 4 higher level classes?
They can.
Yeah.
And just, I'm going to be doing an evening coming up in October all about the diploma program, how it articulates the MYP, what it can do for your child and their post-secondary educational pursuits, what your child may want to follow in the full DP and what they may end up following as certificated students and might not take the full DP. I have a lot of information that I'd love to share in depth, handle your questions as they come, and that'll come up October 26th. So we will do a lot of reminders for that date, so please save the date. I'll be more than happy to talk to you then about it, but I'll also hang around after this presentation if you just wanted to do some quick one-on-one chats.
One important thing to understand is that students will be graduating with both the Dogwood as well as the IB Diploma, so they have both credentials behind them. The BC government recognizes the IB Diploma as an alternative pathway to graduation, but we are going to ensure here at St.John's that they have both credentials when they graduate, which we feel just is double security, for sure.
Question for
Yeah.
So the curriculum for the IB program, is that intertwined with the BC curriculum, or are they 2 separate entities?
That's a great question. So within the middle years program, it is kind of intertwined. So what we're doing is using BC content. So the actual content of what students are learning about, say in English or in social studies, learning about BC First Nations or something like that. A lot of that is coming from the BC government. The MYP is more of an assessment model and a way of teaching and learning rather than actually prescribing what students need to learn. And it's been created that way so that it can essentially be transplanted all over the world and take in national curriculums all around the planet. So the IB by itself, the MYP by itself, aside from I think mathematics and science, doesn't actually even prescribe topics of what students need to cover. A lot of that comes from the national curriculums that are embedded within them. That's a great question. Within the DP here in British Columbia, I think the number is about 80% overlap, but the BC government essentially recognizes, for instance, if they were taking language and literature year 1, which is grade 11, they recognize that as the equivalent of literary studies grade 11. So it's all kind of the same. They give you the same credit for it and recognize it as the same thing. Feel free to take some cookies with you and some of these iced muffins.